feel free at any time to either raise your hand, sometimes I don't see it, or to put questions in the chat, or you can wait till the end. It's totally up to you. The whole point of doing this is to make sure that we give you the information you're looking for and that we answer your questions. So certainly we have things planned, but it's more important that we go in the direction that you need us to go. Okay, so we're going to do a really quick PowerPoint. So we have academic programs in a very flexible manner. So most of our students go full-time for 3 years during the day, but we also have a part-time day program and a part-time evening program that would be finished in 4 years. So that's to accommodate people who have different schedules or different commitments. Typically it's full-time work that would preclude you from going to the full-time day program. Everybody takes 86 credits, and we have joint degree programs. Lots and lots of people are interested in finding out about joint degrees. The reality is very few students actually do the joint degree programs. And I think the students can probably talk about that later. So the way that it works is you'd be admitted to the law school. You'd have to be separately admitted independently to those other programs. And typically you're doing the law school in the first year. And then if you wanted to do something like the JD MBA or JD MA in philosophy, you would apply for that during your first year and then start combining courses in the second year. For anybody who's one of our partner schools, we have a 3-3 early admissions program, meaning that students can skip their senior year and come right into the law school. So I always say, if you're interested in that, contact me directly at lawadmissions@duq.edu, and we'll discuss exactly what needs to be done for that program. Okay, when you talk about law schools, location is so important. When you go to undergrad, you can go to a rural area, a huge school, and there's so many different things that that location and that size will offer you. When you go to law school, you become part of the law school community of students and faculty and other people there, but you also really quickly become part of the local legal community. Part of that is required because the ABA says that you have to have 6 credits of experiential learning, meaning you have to go out and see how things work. Where we're located, you can see from this slide, we have our own 50-acre campus on what we call the Bluff, a hill right above downtown Pittsburgh. We're in downtown Pittsburgh. We've got this beautiful campus, but within 5 to 7 minutes, you could walk down the hill and be at any of the courts, any of the law firms. You could be at any of the corporations, any of the tech companies in Pittsburgh, getting that experience that is essential to your law school experience. Okay, and it's a beautiful city. So if you have not been to Pittsburgh, I'm excited for you to visit us. I'm a lifelong Pittsburgher, moved to LA for a while and came back, and I love Pittsburgh, but I used to have to sell it and say, oh, it's a lot nicer than you think. It's not so bad. Now I don't have to do any of that. People love coming to Pittsburgh. In terms of what it has to offer, we're always ranked high on a lot of lists for livability and other things. And some of the nicest rankings we've seen, it's the best place to move after college because of opportunities and the best place to start a career. Pittsburgh is a very affordable city made up of about 90 neighborhoods. So although the first time you drive here, it's a nightmare because we're not on a grid. You find your way around, and public transportation is pretty good. And we have many, many walking neighborhoods. Very, very friendly city. Okay, so why Duquesne? We like to talk about Duquesne, having a fabulous curriculum, great outcomes, but it is a community. And so I encourage you to ask our students about that. We recently had a meeting with our university marketing team about, doing some promotion. And they said, the only thing you can't talk about is community, because everybody says that and it's meaningless. Then they did some research and they talked to our students and our faculty and our alums. And they said, okay, your #1 asset is community. So they know that it is something that it's hard to describe and it's hard to assess, but it definitely exists here. Your faculty will know you and you will have access to them. And you really have to think about that, because when you are in undergrad, sometimes you're at a school where you can avoid the faculty if you want. When you go to graduate school or professional school, the faculty are the whole show. That's what it's about for you. So I want you to research the faculty and see, are there people there, working on things that I'm interested in? And if you want to connect with faculty, we're always happy to make that happen. Okay. And so the top 5 reasons that the people would want to come to Duquesne would be our location. We have 14 clinical externship, and fellowship programs. So all opportunities for you to get experience while you're in law school. A very low student faculty ratio at 8-to-1. Nationally recognized for our trial advocacy, and a very successful Moot Court team too. And when I talked about results you can find and you can compare when you look at the ultimate bar pass rate. So the ultimate bar pass rate is a 2-year measure that the ABA requires us to give. And, in the past, we'd only ever talk about, oh, in July, the students passed, here was the first time pass rate. Okay. It didn't really tell you the whole story, and the ABA felt that it wasn't giving enough information. So we follow a class from graduation for 2 years, and then we say how many of the students in that class passed the bar exam within that 2-year period, whatever jurisdiction that's in. And ours is very high at 93.33. We're in the top quarter of the nation in terms of bar passage. And this is consistent for Duquesne. It's important to you because when you're looking at a school's outcomes, it gives you an idea, will I be successful? Well, when this many students are succeeding year after year, yes, you should be. Okay. Employment, the same thing. We've got a fantastic career services office, very experienced people. Maria Comas is one of the hardest working women that I know. She does a terrific job starting with students even in the first year to make sure that you're building a network through something called Lawyers on Location. We can talk about that later. And then you're starting to tell her, here's what my interests are. Here's what I'd like to try while I'm in law school. Long term, I'm thinking about this. Maria knows that often you come in with an idea like, oh, I want to do family law or criminal law, 2 most popular things that students choose when they're coming into law school. But there are so many other options out there. She knows it's very likely you'll change your mind, and she's going to make you aware of a lot of those things. So this just gives you an idea of where our students end up year after year, law firms being the most popular, but you have many other options. You'll begin to realize how powerful the JD degree is when you see that it touches everything in everybody's life. Okay, again, we have a formal bar studies program. I thought everybody did, but as I talk to my colleagues at other schools, sometimes students are just expected to figure it out on their own. We have a good formula, a good process for preparing students for the bar exam, and so we stick to that. And we know from all of the assessment that we do that if students follow through on the things that are suggested to them about preparing for the bar, that they have a very, very good chance of passing. They do even 75% of the work that we ask. Okay, we have full-time faculty working in that area, and you'll get to know them very well. We also have alumni mentoring, and I love that part of it. So when students are studying for the bar, alumni will make themselves available on a volunteer basis to work with our students to help them prepare for the bar exam. Okay, my favorite saying, this was created by Christine Woodburn: do well, do good, Duquesne. When I travel nationally, I always make sure to say I'm Maureen from Duquesne, because people get embarrassed when they don't know how to pronounce our name. And once you know, that's great. You're part of our group now that you know how to say this. So we have 8,000 committed, loyal alumni across the country, some in Europe, that we reach out to constantly when we're working with law students to give them the opportunities that they need. Our legal writing program is nationally ranked and very highly ranked. That's one of the key skills that you're going to learn in the first year, and it's going to take you through the rest of your career, because that's what you do in law, is you read and you write. Research. Part-time programs for anybody who's interested. We do have part-time, and so I'm happy to talk about that. And we also get high marks for the employment of our graduates, our criminal law and family law programs, and for being a top small law employment. So not everybody wants to do big law. And so we have lots of resources for somebody that wants to work in smaller law firms. Okay. Numbers that matter. So we talked a little bit about the clinics, internships, and externships. Our students and faculty provided nearly 27,000 hours of legal service to the local community last year during COVID. And I qualify that because the previous year it was around 22,000 hours of legal service that was provided. And when COVID hit, our director, Professor Kate Norton, was really concerned, how are we going to continue to provide what our clients need? But she didn't miss a beat. She made sure that everything went online, and we continued to give service to our clients and actually increase the number. This is such an important thing that we we do for the community, and it is so necessary. So if students want to start doing clinical programs in the second year, some will do more than one. They'll have different opportunities. Maybe they'll do juvenile advocacy or the veterans clinic or the wills and directives clinic. It could be a variety of different things that people do. And each year I see that the clinics will shift things a little bit because they're constantly looking to improve the service that they provide. And so they might change a clinic or add one or combine some, to provide the service that our community needs. Okay, the application process, it's pretty much the same, starting the process. Any law school in the country that's ABA approved is going to go through Law School Admissions Council. You'll find the application there at lsac.org. And most require similar things. So you'll have to review the requirements for each school to make sure that you're meeting their requirements. So in addition to all of your college transcripts, everybody requires a personal statement. Typically, they require a resume. We require 1 letter of recommendation, but we'll accept up to 3. So would I recommend getting 3? Yeah, sure. If you have 3 people that can talk about your intellectual capacity, about your work ethic, about your ability to persevere when things get tough, and that can come from a variety of people, not just academics or professors. So yeah, if you can do 3 recommendations, that's perfect. We have optional essays. Over the years, we've developed these essays because there were times we read an application and then we met the person and we said they didn't match. There was more information that person could have provided if we had prompted a little bit. So we've added some optional essays. Anybody that's here today should certainly do a Why Duquesne essay, because we want to know, okay, what do you know about us? Why do you think you're a good fit? Will you be a good fit for us? What prompted you to apply to Duquesne? We also have statements that you can do on overcoming obstacles. I think that's a critical one because, as I mentioned, when you get to law school, there will be bumps in the road. And so we want to make sure that you've already developed some skills for dealing with that, or you're able to say, I'm going to seek help right now because, even though I'm doing really well in torts and contracts, I'm not understanding civil procedure, and I'm going to ask for some help with that. Diversity statements. We want to build a community of students that represents what we see in the population generally, and also we know what the needs are in the legal community. We're lacking in diversity in the legal community, so we want to help to build that. Leadership experience is another one, and it doesn't mean only those things you've been elected to lead. People manifest leadership in many different ways. So talk to people that know you and say, where do you see me as being a leader? If you're saying, well, I'm not a leader. You're going to be an advocate for your clients. You will be a leader as a lawyer. When you get to Duquesne, you can participate in a leadership seminar with our dean. She understands that leadership can be honed, it can be nurtured, it can be developed. And so we really focus on that. Okay. I would say get the application in as early as possible this year. Last year was a banner year for all law schools nationally, and applications went up a crazy amount for some schools. And we saw that increase too. And so what happened is, because we didn't anticipate it, our classes filled earlier than they normally would. And so students who normally we would say, yeah, you can apply by this certain date and then you should be fine, they were locked out of options. We had no more seats to give. Scholarship money was gone. So do yourself a favor. You're here now and you're already thinking about this, get the application in early. What I ended up doing last year, because I really felt a commitment to people who had said early in the process, here's my application, I want to come to Duquesne. That's what I looked at. When we got down to the wire, I said, okay, these people were all in early on. So I'm going to take a really close look at them first before I look at the applications for people who applied very late in the cycle. So how do we review? We do a holistic review. This team that you see here, the 3 of us, we read every application. And then we share applications with our faculty committee. And then we come to some kind of consensus to decide, yes, this person has the academic background that's going to support their success in law school. They have the potential based on LSAT. They have the experience that is going to support them in law school, and many of the other things that we see. And also for me, I know that letters of recommendation are important. You'll tell me all kinds of wonderful things about you in the application. I want to see that supported. I want some evidence for that. And that comes in the form of those letters of recommendation, where somebody will say, this is the person that always steps up to do the extra work, or this is the person that will risk being wrong, but will still try, whatever it is. They're always really great anecdotal letters that tell me this person really knows you and they're supporting you and it's right on target. Diverse life experiences. We want to build this community where people share with each other and learn from each other. And so we've put up there the GPA and LSAT factors for the class that entered last year. So we're right now sitting at a 155 median LSAT and a 3.43 median GPA. So who was that student that got that? Well, I don't know, because these are the numbers. This is great to look at to kind of get an idea of if you're competitive, but we don't employ cutoffs. And if you have any question about, do you think I'm qualified? Call, we'll talk about it. Because again, and I don't know what's going to happen this year. Things went up last year. They may maintain where they are now. We may see a little backslide, who knows? But we will always be willing to talk to you about what we think, whether or not you have a competitive chance of applying here. Okay, lots of different majors. Okay, financial aid. So it's great to get that letter of acceptance that says, yes, you're in. And then a couple minutes later, you start to think, wow, that's a lot of money. How am I going to pay for this? So we typically try to send our letters of acceptance out on the same day that we send out your scholarship offers. So the way that Merit Scholarship works is we will review the application, make a decision, and if it's positive, then we're going to take it immediately to review for scholarship. And so not every student gets a scholarship, but many of our students, probably 75% of our students, will receive merit scholarships. For full-time students, that ranges anywhere from 25% of tuition up to full tuition. And we do not offer conditional scholarships. Conditional is not good, okay? Unconditional is good. So what we do is when we award a scholarship, you're going to get that scholarship renewed for 3 years in law school, as long as you remain in law school. So we say good academic standing. That just means that you didn't fail out. And we feel like it's incumbent on us to make the right decision about who we admit and who gets the scholarships. And I study this year after year, and in most cases, we're right on target. The people that we're giving scholarships to are performing well, they're doing well, and it all works out. So financial aid for law school is primarily two things. It would be those merit scholarships. And then if you can find any outside scholarships, that's great. You bring those in and, that will help to offset some of your debt. And then loans. So you'd be working with the financial aid office to process your loans. You would have to fill out a FAFSA if you're going to get a loan. But this is different than when you might have done this as an undergrad and maybe your parents' income was being considered. There are no grants that I'm aware of for law school. We have some endowed scholarships that we'll let admitted students know about. That's another way that our alumni support us. But that's basically what you're looking at. So I always say, try to be cognizant of how much debt you're racking up, because we get many students who want to do public service when they graduate. But often your debt will dictate the job that you have to take, because you're saying, well, I have this much debt, I need to make this much money. And I hate to see that happen. I'd love to see students just being able to choose the job that they want, not based on the burden that they have with this. Okay. So if you want to get in touch with us, here we are. And here's our information. We all monitor the law admissions at duq.edu. And so you can get in touch with us anytime, or you can call us at 412-396-6296. We have listed here that the priority application deadline is April 1st, but this year I think that's going to be really late. So I would say if you're here now, get the application in. We recommend that you take the LSAT at least 2 times. So if you can plan for that, that's great. And here's why. You take the LSAT the first time, and it can be a very daunting endeavor, especially now with it still being online. So you get your score, and your score might be enough to get you admitted, but that's the same score we're going to use for scholarship. So if you retake it, we're going to take the highest score you receive. So there's no risk in retaking it. And if you score higher on that, even 2 points or 3 points or 4 points, it could mean thousands of dollars in additional scholarship money. And we will go back, if we've admitted you, given you your scholarship, and then we see in January another score pops up, we're going to go back and redo that scholarship. I think that's only fair, because if you're, applying and you're applying to another school later in the cycle, we want to be fair to you about that. Okay, so we've got lots of things online that you can do. We have virtual tours, we have classes online that you can look at, but we're also back. We have been back since fall of 2020. We're in 21 right now. Yes. Okay. So we've been back and we're happy to have you visit. We can set up a tour. We'll meet with you. We'll have you observe a class. We'll have you meet some faculty, have students talk to you. You get the whole experience. So if you want to do that, just reach out to us at Law Admissions and we'll help you make that plan. We've been fortunate that the university has been doing what they call Duquesne Days, and they've been having the university open on weekends. And so, certain weekends each month. And we've been participating in that because we know that sometimes students can't get there during the week. So we'll publicize those dates too, in case, weekends are better for you. So that's it for me. I'm going to stop talking and let's see, do we have any questions that have either been pre-issued or are they in the chat? Anything that anybody would like to ask? Okay, what's the best time to get the application? I won't take the LSAT. Okay, that's fine. Even if you're not taking the LSAT until the future, as I said, I'm looking at the date when you actually applied. And it takes LSAC some time to process your application. It takes us some time to process the application. So if the application comes early, and I know my colleagues think I'm crazy, but as soon as an application comes in, I look at it when it's incomplete. I just want to see what's there. I want to see who's coming. We're a small community, so I start to think about where I see you fitting in and who you might be connected to or that kind of thing. So it never hurts to get that application in early. Okay. All right. So has anyone visited Pittsburgh? For the people that are on camera? Okay. Okay, so sometimes that's just enough. If you visit, you say, yeah, I like it. I want to go to school here and it's a great environment. So I think that's a big part of what we're doing. Okay, Fallon, Lauren, or Kayla, anything that you would like to say, any words of advice you'd like to give to these students? I'll start with Fallon.
Okay, hi, I'm Fallon. A word of advice I would give is when you are looking at law schools, it is good to go visit. And when I was applying, it was during the pandemic, we're still in the pandemic, but it was when it was first starting. So I didn't get the chance to really visit, but I had visited Duquesne for undergrad, actually. And so you get a good grasp of the environment and you get to meet people. And I didn't get to come to the law school till this year in person, but speaking with Dean Stoken, Christine, and Caitlin, and they were always very welcoming and able to answer all my questions. I had a lot of questions during my process. So really getting to connect with the current students if you can, or admissions team, and going to visit if you really can, I think is very helpful when you are deciding.
Yes, great. Okay. Lauren, what brought you to Duquesne?
Hi, I'm Lauren again. So I went to Duquesne undergrad, so I am a double Duker. And for me, it may sound a little cliche, but there was no place like home for me. Whenever we talk about community within the university itself, and especially within the law school, we really mean it. As a first-year law student, it's a big transition from your undergrad into law school, and it's scary, but the students are so welcoming, the faculty is so welcoming, and that's what makes it easier, and that's what made my decision a lot easier, is just knowing that anywhere I went, anything I did, I would be supported with Duquesne. So.
Right. Now, Kayla, I'm going to ask you to talk about what it's like to have worked full-time and then come into law school.
Yeah, so I actually was a high school English teacher for a few years before coming to law school, and I taught in Mississippi. So I went to Penn State for undergrad, so I had been through Pittsburgh, but I had never been to the campus or anything. And I think personally, I really am glad that I worked before coming to law school. It gave me, it kind of grounded me a little bit. I didn't feel as overwhelmed as I think some of my peers felt coming straight from undergrad. But I also, coming from my teaching background, felt incredibly supported by the 1L professors. They just have a really strong grasp on like their educational pedagogy, and it is very much like a teaching school. Like they're not, I felt like I was being taught more during law school than I was as an undergrad, where I was sitting in classrooms with like 300 people. And I just felt really supported. They made themselves available. And it was just like really nice to see. It was not what I expected. So that is kind of, I think, my transition from coming from a full-time job in education to being like a student.
Great answer. That was really helpful. To talk about how the faculty handles students, because I know that you hear all of these horror stories about what law school is going to be like, and that the faculty are just humiliating you. And I don't tend to get that. They're certainly going to challenge you, but they are there. That Professor Hepner, who teaches civil procedure, will say, "Oh, I'm not trying to, when I cold call people, I'm not trying to humiliate them. I just want to make sure they're getting it." And I've had students say to me, "Does it feel like that when you're being called on?" But you do have to, you have to be ready. So good answer. And Kayla helps us with recruitment, and her teaching background is essential to doing a lot of the things that we do. So we really appreciate that. Okay, so we have a question here. If you are thinking about applying early decision, you have to have your application complete by December 31st, and then we'll have an answer to you by January 31st. And just be aware that if you apply early decision, that typically means that if you take our offer, then you're going to withdraw your application at other schools. I'm fully aware of that. And so I'm going to give you the scholarship that you deserve. And I say that because I've had colleagues say to me, "Well, early decision, I kind of hold the scholarship back." And I think that that is totally unfair. I would never do that. So you're going to get the scholarship that is fair. And you'll get as much as we can possibly do for you at that point. But that's basically how it works. So if you know that you want to if Duquesne's a school for you, then early decision is a great way to have that decision early and to get your scholarship and know that you're on your way. Okay. Oh, academic support, especially for someone who has been out of school for a while. We have an academic excellence program, and I'll be straightforward about how this all started. Many years ago, there was an idea, if students are struggling in the first year, let's have some support for them so that they can persist to graduation. We won't lose them. Well, as soon as the top students in the class saw what the academic excellence was about, resources and tutoring and some legal skills courses and some other things, they said, "Well, we want that too." So our academic excellence is open to everyone, and we recommend that everyone take legal skills. So do any of the students want to talk about academic excellence? Okay, go ahead. Kayla?
I can talk a little bit about it because so I participated in legal skills, and I have a few friends who are legal skills mentors. So as a 1L, it's just like a 1-credit pass-fail class, and you get a mentor who's a 2L or a 3L, and they are kind of like your sounding board for everything. I think my mentor, like I still talk to her today. She works in West Virginia now, but she like helped me with my finals and essay writing, and just it really just helps you. It gives you like all of the basics that you need, because while the professors are obviously super supportive, you don't have like a test every other week. You have one final. And so you're not necessarily getting all of like the practice in terms of legal writing, because it is so different. And so it really helped support there. And it continues throughout, if you want it to, it can continue throughout 2L and 3L. So I have friends who are in a similar class now as 2Ls, and I think almost all of the 3Ls are in core comps, because it just like helps prepare you for the bar. And you get credit for it, but it's like meant kind of as that aid and just like an extra support. And I would also say something that was really nice with 1L is that all of your classes have a TA, at least one TA. So you'll have other people to help you outside of just the professor and their office hours. So I think that's like another really strong support system.
Great. Lauren, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of Kayla. So I'm currently in the legal skills class that Duquesne offers, and it has been such a help for me. Coming into it, I didn't really know how to legally write. And so that class gives you not only the necessary skills for that, but just in your doctrinal classes too, how to answer multiple choice questions, how to IRAC an essay. They break everything down for you. There's a lot of videos, there's a worksheets, everything you can possibly think of, they provide for us. And my mentor is great. She's a 3L. And she really walks us through what to expect for finals, what to expect in a day-to-day class. And also with the teaching assistant comment, that they are your best friends. That is what I have began to learn. Utilize your TAs, utilize their office hours, because our professors, they handle a lot of students at a time. There's 60 to 70 of us in a class in one sitting, but your TAs are the most, trusted individual from your professor. So definitely utilize them because they are very helpful.
Great. Okay, and there's a question just to clarify. Anybody who does apply for early binding, early decision, if the application is complete by December 31st, you will have an answer by January 31st. Yeah, that's our commitment. I had another question in mind, but anybody else want to raise a question? Christine or Caitlin, something you want to? Oh, somebody in a government position. Yeah, okay, asking about conflicts of interest that have prevented students from completing on time. Not typically, because here's what tends to happen. There are so many opportunities that, let's say you work for an area of the government that would have to do with Veterans Affairs, and they really don't want you going into court with veterans or whatever it might be. Okay, I'm just trying to make something up. Then we have 400 different options of other things that you can do. So that's what Kate Norton and her team would do. They would say, well, hey, how about this? Why don't you look at this particular opportunity? And so there are other options. So if we would find that there was going to be a conflict or a problem, then we would work around that. And that is really the benefit of a small school. People like the registrar, Dr. Valerie Harper, she knows everything that's going on with students. And if there's a difficulty, she's going to find a way to work with the student to make sure that everything is as it should be. Same with our Dean of Students, Dean Ella Quiznick. Her door is always open. Physically, it's always open. And when I walk by with a student for a tour, we pop in, we talk. So you have a lot of people that you can work with so that you're not making a decision that's going to put you in a bind later. Nationally, and there, Caitlin is always Johnny on the spot getting this information up. So she's showing you the first year core courses. And what I want you to notice about these is our core courses, also called doctrinal courses, are year long. And so when you're looking at schools, you might see that other schools say, well, you'll take a semester of contracts and a semester of civil procedure, and then you're on your own for the rest of it. We really believe that you need a full year in order to be to have that solid foundation across the board generally in law. And so we have not changed that. And we know that that's part of why our students have been so successful, both on the job and on the bar passage. So everybody takes the same thing in the first year, pretty much. Then you can start to take elective courses in the second year and then on to the third year. For evening students, they're going to take one less course. So they'll be there Mondays through Thursdays. The Monday course is typically online. That's contracts. So that's one less night you have to actually be physically in the building. And then you finish the program in 4 years. So there's a question about if you are a part-time evening student and you work full-time, how can you do the clinicals? We have some clinicals that are for working people. So there are some opportunities that the clinic offers that in your second, third, and fourth year of the evening program, you can take advantage of. We started as an evening school more than 100 years ago. So our evening students are top priority, along with the day students. Even though we have fewer evening students than day, we try to plan everything that we do with the idea that all of our students need to have access. So we make sure that that occurs. Okay. Any other questions?
Dean Stokin, I think there was a question about the qualifications of the TAs above that.
Okay. Do you guys want to talk about that? Do you have any idea? Because I can talk about it otherwise. Okay, I'll start. So typically the faculty in the first year, they're going to, you know, they will know who are the best people in the class, like who's really getting this, who can articulate this stuff. And they will approach those students and say, would you like to TA for my particular course? So they're already a proven quantity. And so that's how that works. But there are also research assistant positions that students can be paid for. So that's another opportunity that you'd have at the law school. By the second year of law school, we see so many students either doing, you know, the TA, the RA, or working in a part-time capacity in town. And the schedule kind of permits, and we're close enough that you can do a morning class, go down, work a couple hours, come back for an afternoon class. And I always tell my staff, it's like magic happens at the end of the first year. Somehow it all comes together and students arrive back for the second year, these competent, poised professionals able to do it all. So some kind of wonderful stuff goes on in that first year. Okay, so concentrations. Are any of our current students doing a concentration, thinking about it? Okay, and that's pretty typical. So we talk a lot about concentrations as we are going into law school, and students, it's something that is familiar because you had to have a major, but you don't really major in law school. You can get a focus, you can, you know, develop different things, but it's not necessary. But students really like the concentration idea, so we developed these formal programs. You know, in the past, a student would say, yeah, I think I want to do corporate law. I'm really interested. What should I take? So faculty would sit down, come up with a list and say, these are the courses. So we've just kind of formalized that with these concentrations. So we have 4 different areas and they have multiple tracks. So you can pretty much accomplish what you want. If you look under business law, you'll see intellectual property. Okay, that could be a concentration on its own. So I tend to call that a specialization. So you just kind of decide, well, you know, I'm really interested in intellectual property. With the internet and everything that has brought to us, intellectual property has really grown to the point where it's not just patent lawyers. It's people that work in trademark and copyright and a lot of things like that. So somebody that would say to us, I want to be in sports and entertainment law, we would start immediately talking about intellectual property. You know, you want to talk about that, and then some other things. Contracts is going to be critical, and property will. You know, we have corporate counsel at all of the sports franchises in Pittsburgh. So at the Penguins, at the Pirates, at the Steelers, and when you talk to our alums that are there, they're talking to you about these basic areas of law that they have to be expert in. For instance, the Penguins are involved with a lot of land development around their area. They've got to know about property and leasing and all of those kinds of things. So it isn't just, hey, these are, you know, wonderful performers or athletes. There's a lot more to it. And that's why you become so valuable as a lawyer, because you provide that service and that expertise. So Wednesday, we can talk about that offline. I don't think you'll need the TOEFL. As long as a student has a degree in the US, then typically we can waive that. When does one decide if they want to do a concentration? It is after the first year. And I want to thank Heather. You have a lot of good questions, so thank you. That keeps things going. And so after the first year, because in the first year, as you saw, you have a completely prescribed curriculum, so you can't make any choices. But after that, you can start. And as I mentioned, specialization. So let's say you've taken a couple courses here and there, and for things that you were interested in, and then Maria Comas says, hey, a job came up that you might be interested in. You're going to take your resume and you're going to look at your curriculum and you're going to tailor that resume to that job. So if the job is in-house counsel, you're going to say, okay, well, yeah, I took corporate law and then I took governance and I took this and regulation and whatever it might be. So every time you're applying for a job, you're going through and you're saying, where's my strength and how can I highlight that for this particular job? So there's a lot of flexibility with it. Okay, student orgs, yay. So let's talk about student organizations. So right now we have over 25 active student organizations. So this will be fun. I'll start with Lauren this time. Lauren, are you involved with any student organizations now? I know you're first year, you can't be in leadership, but have you joined any?
So I am in the first generation law society, if we're talking about those. I'm
Yeah.
also student ambassador. I'm a part of the OWLs, which is an old and wiser group. And that group is more tailored towards unique circumstances. So just a little fun fact, I have a 1-year-old daughter. And so I just want everyone to know that it is possible to go to law school with a child. But that group is really helpful in that I am connected with other parents who also are going through the same things I'm going through. And we're kind of navigating this together. And then I'm also a part of the International Law Society. That's kind of my area of focus. That's what I'm leaning towards. So I tailored my organization based off of that.
Great. Okay, that's a lot of interesting stuff. Just right out of the gate in the first year. Yeah. Okay, Fallon, are you involved in any organizations?
Yes. So I'm an ambassador, but I'm also secretary of the Black Law Student Association. And I'm also in trial advocacy right now and hoping to be on the trial team next semester. So
Okay.
that's a really cool class. You all should take it, by the way.
Fallon, did you have an interest in trial advocacy early on? Like, had you done Moot Court in college or anything like that?
I did mock trial in high school, and it made me nervous and I didn't want to do it ever again. But then I got here and I realized that it's very helpful. Even if you don't think you want to be a litigator, it's very helpful class. And like, I've learned a lot about evidence. I'm taking evidence right now, and then we go over it in trial ad. So it's like very helpful all the way around and helping my public speaking. And now I might want to be a litigator. So who knows?
That was sort of a setup, because that happens so often that students come in and they don't have a conception of themselves doing that. But we all know that it's not like in Law and Order when they stand up and they give this long speech and it's perfect with no notes, that it just isn't like that. So that it's always so exciting to see somebody that tries it, they risk that, and then they've developed like a lifelong skill and a passion for that. So thank you. Kayla, what are you involved in?
So I am also in the Black Law Student Association as the academic chair. I'm in Women's Law Society, and I am on the Moot Court board. And last year / kind of still this year, I did Leadership Fellows with Dean Barton.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Leadership Fellows?
Yeah. So it is a program that Dean Barton invited 1Ls into, and I think 2Ls and 3Ls can apply into the program. And it was just an opportunity to kind of like hone your leadership skills, but also like kind of self-reflect and figure out what it is like you have to offer to the world, but also in your own way, and how to be a leader without having to be a leader, if that makes sense. You don't have to have a title to it. You can just be a leader, however that may look in your everyday life. And it was really neat. We got to meet with a lot of alums. We got to do some really cool programming with like some outside guests who did like behavior identifications and things of that nature. Mine was obviously all remote. Now I have a couple of friends who are in it, and it is in person, and they also love it. I think one of like the coolest experiences that occurred during the program was we were meeting with some alums, and I had asked a question about what it was like to like leave Pittsburgh, because I don't intend on staying in Pittsburgh after I graduate. And one of the alums, instead of like answering my question, he just started rattling off numbers, and I was like really flustered, and I realized he was giving me his cell phone number just to connect, because he lived like in North Carolina at the time. And so like he was just like a great resource. Like they're just so willing and helpful and open. And I don't think I would not have had that connection without Leadership Fellows. So it's a really neat program.
I love that particular story. That was Brian Parker, I believe. Very, very successful alum who graduated many years ago and has kept his connections at the law school, also supports a scholarship there. And he gave that cell phone number out so anybody could have it. And it's just so generous. And we see that so often with our alumni, because that's an important part of your network. It starts a lot of times with our faculty, with our alumni, and then builds from there. Okay, so can any of the students comment on how the low student faculty ratio contributes to their relationship building with professors? So when we say that they have an open door policy, is that true? And how have you found it? Are they accessible?
I'm just going to say I was literally texting one of my professors today. So yes, they're extremely accessible. Professor Oliver also emails back at the most absurdly fast rate I have ever experienced in my entire life. So I would say that yes, they are very accessible.
Yeah, and it's critical. It's very important. Fallon or Lauren, have you had that experience? Lauren, have you reached out to any faculty? Have you stopped by to meet anybody?
Yeah, I bombard my professors all the time. I'm pretty sure they're sick of me by now. So when they definitely say open door policy, they mean it. They're really good, like Kayla said, about answering emails. Also, too, you begin to form that personal relationship with your teachers. My legal research and writing professor, I adore her. I can just stop into her office and talk to her about anything, even just about how my day is going. She'll be like, "Oh, do you want a cup of coffee?" Anything of that sort. So, yeah, they're really there for you if you need them.
Great. And Fallon, who's your favorite faculty member?
Oh, my favorite, Professor Hepner, probably. Last year when we were on Zoom, well, I was on Zoom. I know some people were in person, but I stayed in Maryland. So it was difficult for me at first, but he always was like, hey, you can hop on a Zoom if you want to go over anything, like any hour of the day, he was willing to hop on a Zoom. And the other professors as well. Professor Kravitz was my torts professor, and he was also very, very helpful. So the open door policy is it's real. And I agree with Lauren that some of them just want you to come talk to them in office hours. Like, it doesn't have to be about law school. You can just talk about your personal life because law school is hard. So they're all willing to speak with you and give you resources if you need it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. My team, we know we'll meet everybody. We'll know everybody when you come into the law school. So sometimes if you have a question or you're struggling with something, you'll stop into our office. And we immediately realize that we can give you moral support, but you probably need to talk to a faculty member. We'll walk you over there to their office, make the introduction. And I always say to people who are a bit more reserved, I'm like, don't worry, because as soon as you introduce yourself, they can handle both sides of the conversation. They're off and running, and pretty soon you'll get comfortable, and then you'll begin to ask the questions you need to ask, or just hang out and talk with them. But it's so good to get to know them, because as you begin to progress through this law school career and then into your career, they can be of great help to you, advising or connecting you. We had a situation with Professor Oliver after class. He had done something in class, was teaching, and students stopped and said, I just have to tell you, I don't like the way you teach. And instead of saying, too bad, he said, well, let's have coffee and talk about it. And the student said, I'm a computer scientist, and you have to find the answer. That's the way it is. And Professor Oliver, of course, said, no, that isn't how this is. But let's talk about why that's so important to you and how you can work with that. Well, long story short, they now have a tech company that they're building together. Professor Oliver is building this software for probable cause. And so if you ever want to talk about that, he is always ready. But it's so cool to me. They've presented in the Netherlands. They've presented all around the country on this topic. And it all came about because Morgan criticized his teaching methods. So you never know what's going to happen. Let's see. Where do most students live? Okay, I'll defer to our students on that.
Right, so 12 minutes driving, maybe like 25 on the bus, depending on how many stops the bus makes. And I take the bus because I don't have a car. So if anyone has questions about that, I can answer it. The public transportation is pretty easy to navigate. I'll say that.
Okay, Lauren?
Yeah, I live off campus. I want to say about 5 or 10 minutes right out of the city. It's in a really quiet and easy to get to school.
Okay, and Kayla?
Last year, I lived in Shadyside and commuted with via bus like Fallon, but this year I actually live downtown because I can just walk everywhere. I work at a firm downtown, and it's like on my way home from school. So
yeah, what we find is, with these 90 neighborhoods, There are lots of neighborhoods around the law school that are in walking distance. They're safe. You can live there. Pittsburgh is affordable. And then the bus line is good. We have this little subway. And so you can live on the North Shore near the stadiums because the subway will bring you over. It doesn't go everywhere, but it goes some places. Each year, Caitlin will survey our students and say, okay, where are y'all living? Like, what are the top places? And then where do you go to eat? Because we figure those are two important things. And so we always keep a running list of these things. We do have on-campus housing. Most students don't live there in residence halls. If they do decide to live there, typically Residence Life will put law students and graduate students together, not with undergrads, but they usually last, I don't know, Christine, what, like a semester, and then they'll move somewhere else. So if you're thinking it'll be easy to live in residence hall, then I'll find my way. That's a good strategy too. So, okay. People who complete the part-time programs, any issues that were specific to the part-time program? It is intense. You know, you are only taking one less class than the full-time students. And typically you're working full-time, and lots of our evening people have families. So you have to be a tremendous time manager, and you have to find that motivation to get the work done as soon as the time presents itself to do that. Now, people do that. If that's what you have to do, then people will do that. But sometimes we'll have people, they'll start in the evening program the first year, and then they decide, okay, I want to be done with this, and they'll transfer to the day program, and they can still finish in 3 years. Sometimes students will say, well, I can't do all of the things that the day students do. That's absolutely true, because your time commitments will preclude that. But you would be permitted to do anything you could. Like, I had a student a while back, he worked for the government. He saved all of his time off. And then he got a judicial clerkship during school. And every Friday he went and did his clerkship for a semester. So he was able to do that. It was a tremendous experience. It was a federal clerkship. So he figured out a way, to get that done. We have our evening students serve in leadership positions on the organizations. Last year, was Charlie Pacino president last year of the SBA? And he was an evening student. So it's just based on what your own commitments are. Same faculty primarily teach day and evening, so they're here for long hours, and they will tell you it's a different dynamic in the evening because it's much smaller. This year we have a class of about 25 students. Faculty are usually teaching 60 or 70. So they say you get to know these people so well. They also recognize that you're typically a bit more experienced and have job experience. And so they bring that into the classroom. So they want to get to know you, and then they want to talk about how your experience informs the things that you're studying. So I hope I answered that. And I would be happy to put anybody in touch with an evening student so that they could talk about this. One session that we have each year around orientation, it's called How to Support Your 1L. And it's typically for evening students. Day students, their families will come sometimes too, but more for evening students, because we have to say to the families, okay, they're going to be gone and it's going to be hard. And when they are home, they're not going to have a lot of headspace for you. So, maybe think about the ways that you can interact or take their lead when, they're preoccupied with their work. Okay. If for students who've been out of school for a while, we look at work experience, we look at the resume very closely, and then those letters of recommendation are different. There's often, it's not an academic one, and that's fine, because, to go back 10 years, that academic person is going to say, I see that you were in my class and you got this grade, and that's all I can say, which is a wasted letter. So we want to see what your experience has been. So often the transcript we're looking at has almost no relationship to the person that you've become. And so we have a lot of experience, over 100 years doing this and selecting students who will succeed. So we know how to do that. If an evening student applies and I feel like there's not enough information, I'm going to reach out and say, hey, tell me more about this. Or, do you want to get another letter, or whatever it might be. It's all very individualized. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? Christine and Caitlin, anything we missed? Any topics? I think we've kind of gotten everything.
There's a lot of great questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a nice flow.
Mhm. And again, if you have questions that you're more comfortable asking outside, just email us at lawadmissions@duq.edu. If you want to come in, send us an email. We'll set that up. We do have a program coming up. This is Christine has all these brainstorms at night when she should be sleeping, but she thinks of these things. She realized that Thanksgiving week is a great time to have an on-campus event because our evening students aren't in class and they can come to it because, rarely can they come to an event because they're in class or at work. And then people are home from school. So on November 22nd, we will be at the law school having a program at 6 p.m. So if anybody would like to come, let us know and we'll get you all registered for that. And we will feed you, right? We're feeding people that night, right? Okay. Well, that's all I have. I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging in there with us tonight. I want to thank our students. As always, you shine, you make us proud, you do a terrific job, so thank you. Christine, do you have a question?
I do. It's from the chat.
Okay.
Is there a preference for letters of recommendations from professors versus employers?
That's a good one. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you've been out of school for a number of years, I don't expect to see one from a professor unless you've maintained a relationship or if you went to graduate school and it's more recent. But for students the traditional student getting right out of school, we definitely want at least one from a professor. So if you go to Ohio State or Penn State and it's hard to get to know your faculty, you have to work on that. You have to, go out of your way to form a relationship with a faculty member and maybe be upfront and say, look, I want a recommendation from you. So I want you to get to know me. But I like to see them from employers too, because we bring the whole person into law school. And so I'd like to see what employers have to say. And Caitlin and Christine know I have this fear of students who have never worked. So a student who just has grades and nothing else, that isn't going to cut it in law school. You got to be able to do more than one thing at the same time. So even if you've had, food service or retail, those are the hardest jobs. Working with the public is so hard. So tell us about that. I myself give you a lot of points for those jobs. I hope that helped, Shivani. And if you have a question about that, if you want to call and say, hey, I have 4 people I can ask. Who should I have send the letter? We can discuss that. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we're going to finish up here. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I look forward to meeting you in person at some point.